Let me take a moment and talk about Riverside.fm. It allows you to record studio quality audio and up to 4K video. When you need to record audio and video, Riverside.fm can do it. So if you're looking for a hero platform for all your recording needs, from podcasts to webinars to any video content, Riverside.fm. I've got a promo code for you where you'll receive a 30% discount on the first 3 months of your subscription. I'll give it to you twice. The promo code is SHIPIT. All one word, SHIPIT, and you'll pick up a 30% discount on your first 3 months of your subscription. Riverside.fm.
It's time for some football history rewind, and we go to part 23, where we pick up with President Theodore Roosevelt helping to reform the game, or inspiring those rules makers to inspire the game, and we have a big organizational meeting. We have this and more coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with PigskinDispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com, and welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And we are in our football history rewind. We're up to part number 23. If you recall back in part 22, we alluded a little bit to the 1905 season that President Teddy Roosevelt was getting involved. But let's get into a little bit more detail on that. And our friend Timothy P. Brown wrote a great book, How Football Became Football, the first 150 years of the game. And in it, he has a section where he talks a lot about this. And we're just going to sort of paraphrase what Mr. Brown has referenced in his great book. October of 1905, you remember, Teddy Roosevelt summons a group of the heads of football, including Walter Camp and others, to the Oval Office at the White House. And he pretty much tells them, hey, guys, I really enjoy watching this game of football. But you know what? In 1902 at the first Rose Bowl, his cousin William Roosevelt had broken his leg, I believe, in that game. So kind of a brutal game. When his oldest son was playing in 1905, he ended up breaking a collarbone in that game. And it sort of made Teddy Roosevelt stand up. He was a very staunch supporter of men being men and being rugged and doing things, bully, as he would say. But he had to listen to what his constituents were saying and what the press was saying about the game of football maybe being too rough for its own good. And all the numbers were being publicized in every single fish wrap from up and down the East Coast. And sure, it was getting into Washington, D.C., where he was reading it. And, they had that famous picture of the player, had the bloody face and, just got snot beat out of him. And they ended up, being the poster boy for this cause of trying to end football. Well, Roosevelt didn't want to end football, so that's why he called these gentlemen, including Walter Camp and John C. Bell, into his office. And when he did that, the big three were all representative: Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Those were definitely the forces that need to be talked to in a game of football, because they sort of controlled everything with the game of football at that time, because they sort of invented the game. Now, when they talked to them, he didn't exactly have the rules get changed overnight. Well, it was just a couple months later. Yale and Princeton and Harvard really didn't want to change the game because they were so successful. They were getting all these gigantic athletes that were just, and they had all the strategy and the coaching to win. And they were the most successful programs at the time. They really didn't want to change the game, and that they had learned to play so well, and everybody else was struggling to craft and adopt their process of doing it. But on December 24th, 1905, a large group representing 28 colleges met at the request of Chancellor Harry McCracken in New York City. This decision shows the dedication of these pioneers of football, many of whom sacrificed spending time with their own families at this holiday to attend. There were people such as H.L. Williams, Director of Athletics of Minnesota, F.H. Curtis from Texas, who had traveled great distances to be at this historic meeting. And as we mentioned, Chancellor Harry McCracken was the Chancellor of, I believe, Harvard. So, the coaching staff at Harvard didn't want to change, but the chancellor, the head of the school, did. This December meeting did little on the subject of actual rules changes, but it was very large in success of organizing the world of football. This conference of colleges soon assumed the name of National Intercollegiate Football Conference, but later changed its name to be the Intercollegiate Athletic Association of the United States. It's not totally unified body at this time, though only one representative of all the schools in the old rules meetings body was present, and that was Harvard. Yale and Princeton, well, they weren't coming into that. The group needed the presence of schools like Yale and Princeton and Pennsylvania too, to give the true merit to the reform. But like I said, those schools didn't want to change because they were the ones having the success playing the game with the wedge game and the heavy, brutal hitting every single play. Well, the 1905 College of Champions, the 1905 college season had the Chicago Maroons retroactively named as the national champions by the Billings Report, the Helms Athletic Foundation, a National Championship Foundation, and the Holgate System. Yale was allegedly named champion by Park H. Davis and Casper Whitney. Chicago, well, they sported a perfect record of, I believe, 13-0, and the Eli scored an untarnished record of 10-0 ledger themselves. And I think co-champions is a fair award to give both of these teams. And I'm sorry, Chicago was 11-0 that season. The Massillon Tigers were the top team in pro football as they outlasted the newly formed Canton Athletic Club and the Shelby Blues. Remember, the Canton Athletic Club would soon be called the Canton Bulldogs, and the Shelby Blues were the former Shelby Athletic Association, former Shelby Athletic Club. You can look up Shelby teams. We had a 3-part series on Shelby professional football just a few weeks ago on the early pro football teams. Make sure you check that out. They ended up being the champions of Ohio State, Massillon did, and which at that time, that was the best team in football on the professional level because Ohio definitely had the greatest teams, and the mythical Ohio League was really something to be held until the NFL came along, which was a formation basically of the old Ohio League teams. January 12, 1906, and it was along the lines of pure genius as to how the IAAU got the missing schools to participate. Remember, we were looking for Yale and Princeton and Pennsylvania. The meeting title of this January 12th conference seemed to do the trick, as it was called the Joint Session of Intercollegiate and Conference Committees. The old Committee of Football Rules Makers were invited as a valid and recognized body to participate with a newly established board to reform the rules of the game. The important thing is it meant it worked. And men such as Alonzo Stagg of the University of Chicago, who just won the championship, well, wasn't a championship at that time, were retroactively championship, but they were an 11-0 team. Walter Camp of Yale, the 10-0 team of that year. Paul J. DeShiel of Navy were now sitting at the same table with men such as C.D. Daly of Army, J.T. Lees of Nebraska, and J.A. Babbitt of Haverford. Now, the amendments to the rules where joint session could have little impact on the game itself, but did organize all of football under one set of rules. The amendments did a lot in shaping the game toward what we recognize in our rule books of today. Here's a couple of them. The officials during the game would be the referee, 2 umpires, and a linesman. It was noted, though, that one of the umpires could be eliminated in a contest of mutual agreement by the 2 participating teams. Secondly, the games would consist of 2 halves with a duration of 30 minutes each. A 10-minute intermission would separate the 2 halves. This excluded another rule that allowed the captain of each side to request up to 3 timeouts per half. Now, doesn't all that sound a little bit familiar? A scrimmage was defined as when a holder of the ball places it flat on the ground with a long axis at right angles to the line of scrimmage and puts it in play by either kicking it forward or snapping it backwards. Very interesting. That's our rule today, pretty much. The line of scrimmage was established as an imaginary line parallel to the goal lines and passing through the point of the ball closest to the side in possession's own goal. The fair catch was determined as a player who, during a kick, raised his hand clearly above his head as a signal of his intention to catch the ball and not to advance it in order to receive protection from going uncontacted. He was permitted to take no more than 2 steps after the catch. In the 6th, the player would be considered down when any portion of his body other than his feet or hands touched the ground while he was being touched by an opponent. That's our rule today. Tripping was illegal, and it was defined as when any player obstructed an opponent by contacting him in any way below the knee. So that's a little bit different from what we have today. We definitely can tackle below the knees. Protection was afforded the snapper back from contact until the ball was actually in play. The ordinary 5 men of the offensive line, center, guards, and tackles, could not drop back into backfield unless they went 5 yards deep behind the line of scrimmage and then were replaced at their line position by a player normally that would be in the backfield. That's pretty much the same. Holding was defined as grasping an opponent with the hands or arms, placing the hands or arms on an opponent to push him away, or circling an opponent's body with their own arms, with the opponent's arms. These rules changes did not change the game substantially at this meeting, but subsequent and frequent meetings followed. At one of these, a proposal by John C. Bell of Pennsylvania, and if John C. Bell, that name may sound very familiar. Well, you remember we had Upton Bell on about a year ago. Upton Bell is the grandson of John C. Bell, and John C. Bell's one of his sons is Burt Bell, who was the former commissioner of the NFL and the founder of the Philadelphia Eagles. Also, Paul J. Dashiell of Navy set a stage for probably the most radical change in football ever saw, the forward pass. Well, space is running a little bit low here, so is our time, and we will come back to that in our section episode number 24 of the Football History Rewinds here on PigskinDispatch.com and the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch podcast. We're sure glad that you could join us once again today. We hope that you will join us each and every day for some great football news of history in the Football History Headlines. Also, we talk about pro football teams, usually the beginning of every week. We're on Monday. And we have the Football History Rewind going through football year by year, like you're listening to right now, usually once or twice a week, as well as we have some great specials coming up. Also, find us on the Sports Jersey Dispatch podcast at jerseydispatch.com for some more great sports of all our major team sports in North America. And we hope that you will be having time to enjoy that podcast and read the posts on that website as well. And don't forget, Orville Mulligan, sports writer, is our audio drama that we've joined up with Oz Davis to form Number 80 Productions. And we have some great stories to tell there with some very talented actors, and you'll relive some history there. So, till tomorrow, everybody, have a great gridiron day. We're taking a peek over at the chains and the down marker. It's 4th and long. We're going to have to punt the ball and get on out of here, but we'll have another series tomorrow for your football history headlines, so be sure to tune in. We invite you to check out our website, PigskinDispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. PigskinDispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast. PigskinDispatch.com is a proud affiliate of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of sports yesteryear.
Are you having a hard time figuring out what to get Dad for Father's Day? You should check out Row 1 Brand's Vintage Pictorum Gallery. They have America's best sports art. With over 7,200 historic sports prints, you're assured to find something unique for Dad this Father's Day. Instead of a boring old tie, Get him a historic baseball photo taken by Henry High Sandom at the historic Polo Grounds Stadium in New York City during the 1894 Temple Cup. Or, if he's an NFL buff, check out the 1963 vintage NFL poster. These are so good looking that you'll be amazed how they turn out. Shop now at sportshistorynetwork.com/row1 and save 15% off your order.